The house that scared her. The old house on Willow Lane had been abandoned for decades, its windows boarded up, and its once white paint now peeling and grey. No one in town spoke much about it, but everyone knew the stories, whispers of strange noises, flickering lights, and the occasional shadow that seemed to move on its own. But those were just stories, tales passed down to frighten children. At least, that's what Emily told herself as she stood at the wrought iron gate, staring up at the crumbling facade. Emily was a writer, a seeker of truths hidden beneath layers of myth and superstition. She'd come to this town specifically for the house, intrigued by the lore that surrounded it. Tonight, under the pale glow of a waning moon, she was determined to uncover the secrets buried within. Pushing open the rusted gate, Emily hesitated only for a moment before stepping onto the overgrown path leading to the front door. Her heart pounded in her chest, each beat louder than the last, but she brushed off the unease. Fear was an emotion she knew well, but one she refused to let control her. The door creaked as she pushed it open, revealing a hallway shrouded in darkness. The air was thick with the smell of mildew and decay, but Emily pressed on, her flashlight cutting a narrow beam through the gloom. The house was silent, save for the occasional groan of wood settling and the faint rustle of leaves against broken windows. As she moved deeper into the house, Emily felt a strange sensation, as though she were being watched. She paused, shining her flashlight around the room she just entered. A parlor, by the looks of it. Dust-covered furniture lined the walls, and a grand piano Saturday in the corner, its keys yellowed with age. The sense of being watched grew stronger, prickling at the back of her neck, but when she turned, there was nothing there. Emily shook her head, chastising herself for letting the atmosphere get to her. She was here for a reason, and she wouldn't be scared off by shadows and old wood. Moving toward the staircase, she placed her foot on the first step, wincing at the loud creak it made. The sound echoed through the house, louder than it should have been. She frowned, holding her breath, listening for any other noise. Nothing. The house was silent again. She climbed the stairs, each step more tentative than the last. At the top, the hallway stretched out before her, lined with closed doors. She felt drawn to the one at the very end, a door slightly ajar, with darkness seeping out like smoke. Her pulse quickened as she approached, and she reached out to push the door open fully. The room beyond was a bedroom, though it looked more like a tomb. A large bed dominated the center of the room, its once luxurious linens now a tattered mess. A single window, cracked and dirty, allowed a sliver of moonlight to filter in, casting eerie shadows across the floor. But it was the mirror that caught Emily's attention, a massive, ornate thing that stood against the wall opposite the bed. Its surface was dark, as though something were moving just beneath the glass. She felt an inexplicable pull toward it, a need to touch it, to understand the darkness it seemed to hold. As she approached, the air in the room grew colder, her breath coming out in visible puffs. The closer she got, the more the room seemed to hum with energy, a low, vibrating sound that she could feel in her bones. When she was just inches from the mirror, she reached out, fingertips brushing against the cold glass. The moment her skin made contact, the room exploded with noise. The door behind her slammed shut with a deafening bang, and the hum grew louder, a deep, guttural sound that seemed to come from the very walls. Emily gasped, stumbling back, but her reflection didn't move. Instead, it smiled. Emily's breath caught in her throat as she stared at the figure in the mirror. It was her, but it wasn't. The eyes were drawn too dark, too deep, like pits that led to nowhere, and the smile, that twisted, malevolent grin, stretched too wide, too far. It wasn't her smile at all. She tried to turn, to run, but her feet wouldn't move. The reflection stepped forward, pressing against the glass from the other side, its smile growing even wider. The sound in the room rose to a fever pitch, a cacophony of voices, whispers, and screams that seemed to come from every direction. Emily's heart pounded in her chest as she watched the reflection raise its hand, mirroring her movements. But this time, it didn't stop at the glass. Its hand pressed through the mirror, the surface rippling like water as it reached out toward her. She tried to scream, but no sound came out. The hand grasped her wrist, ice cold and impossibly strong. It yanked her toward the mirror, and she felt herself being pulled in. Her body stretched and twisted as if she were being torn apart. The last thing she saw before the darkness consumed her was the reflection, still smiling, as it stepped out of the mirror and into the room. And then, everything went black. When Emily opened her eyes, she was standing in the room, but everything was different. The bed was pristine, the walls freshly painted, and the air warm and inviting. Confused, she turned toward the mirror, but what she saw made her blood run cold. The reflection was gone. In its place was her own body, lying on the floor, eyes wide open in terror. The figure standing in the room one, she now realized wasn't her turn to face her. That twisted smile still plastered across its face. And then it spoke, in a voice that echoed through the room like a death knell. "You're mine now." The mirror's surface rippled once more, and the figure stepped forward, leaving Emily trapped within the glass. The last thing she saw before the darkness swallowed her was her own body, now controlled by the thing that had taken her place, walking away from the mirror and out of the room. And the house on Willow Lane was silent once more.